Greetings everyone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is June Allen and I am the founder of The Art of Greatness at juneallen.net. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a little while since I've done any type of video or live stream or whatever. So it's really nice to be back. So I thought I would kick off this new series of videos that I'm going to be doing. And I just wanted to share with you how I work with clients. Now, quite often when clients are looking for a therapist or they want to start working with me or whatever, they're often very anxious. They don't really know what to expect, especially if they've not been in therapy before. So I always like to do these videos every now and then. I've had one that was done quite a few years ago, so I thought this one needed updating. But yeah, things have changed quite a lot over the last few years. I've also done quite a lot of different trainings and stuff like that. And so how I work with clients now, there's been some things that have been added to it. So that's why I wanted to kind of update this video. So yeah, clients often, when they're looking for therapists, they're often anxious. They obviously don't really know what to expect. Sometimes they're coming to therapy with an enormous amount of stress, a lot of shame, and not really knowing kind of where to start. So this video, I'm going to be sharing three different ways, three different approaches that I use when I'm working with clients, and what you can expect as well when you're working with me specifically, because I work, not all therapists are the same. Let me say that first and foremost. Not all therapists work the same, and they have a different way of doing different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share three different types of methods, like therapy methods that I use with clients, and then maybe I'll do it in another video, kind of like the process of what happens when you actually work with me, because I don't want to put too much in. I don't want to overwhelm you too much with too much information. So yeah, so basically, I'm a racial trauma therapist. I've been doing this work for a number of years. I work specifically with Black people as well, but I work with a lot of Black women. Some of the topics that I tend to work with are things like addiction, racial sobriety specifically. I work with people that are in 12-step recovery, currently writing a book about it. I work with women who struggle with the mother wound. Gosh, what else? I deal with family estrangement, self-love. I also do business coaching and stuff like that. So there are other blacknesses, if there are other black businesses that are looking for coaching and stuff like that, and they need support in terms of financial therapy, strategy, marketing, fear of visibility. There are so many different topics that I work with in therapy and as a coach. But if you want to find out more information about how to work with me as a therapy client or as a business coach, if you go to heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, that's heal.juneallen.net, and you'll find all the tabs there that will provide information for you to work with me. All right. So before I get into it, I've got three requests. Okay. Number one, if you find this information really helpful, or you know someone else who's looking for a therapist, a racial trauma therapist, then please share this live stream with them. The second thing is, if you have any questions at all about anything that I've said, you can email me at info@yardofgreatness.com, and you can just ask me whatever you need to, and I can signpost you, or I have an assistant who can also give you information, any information that you need. And the third thing is, this is not a substitute for therapy or business coaching, okay? What I do in these sessions is I share a lot of general information. In all of my videos, I share a lot of information, a lot of value, a lot of content about stuff. Some of it is general topics and stuff that my clients, they're quite often themes that a lot of clients tend to share on. So I share very generally. Obviously, I need to keep my clients' confidentiality and stuff like that. But I do share a lot of general themes about what my clients are struggling with and stuff like that. And if you are looking for a therapist, then obviously I'm not going to be able to answer any questions that are specific to your situation around therapy. Okay, I can answer your questions about uh about how to work with me. If you want to email me, email my assistant about that. But in terms of therapy questions, in terms of your specific struggles, I wouldn't be able to do that via email. You would have to sign up and actually work with me in order to do that because it takes time. And obviously, for ethical and confidentiality reasons, I wouldn't use email and stuff like that to obviously, to answer any specific questions. Okay, so those are the three requests that I have. So let's get into it. So the first method that I use is something that I've developed over the last few years, and I find that this is really, really helpful for a lot of clients. And what I call it is the triangle of awareness, okay? The triangle of awareness or the triangle of healing. Now, what that is there are three relational components to the triangle, okay, that are going to help you to get to the place where you need to in terms of your healing, to help you understand your therapeutic process. So the first corner of the triangle, okay, is your relationship with yourself. Okay, your relationship with yourself. So we would also explore, so just checking my notes for my bullet points that I've put down. So we would explore things like your relationship with your own identity. So if you're a black man, if you're a black woman, if you're queer, whatever your different identities are, the intersections of your identity, we would explore those things and your relationship to them. How do you feel about different parts of your identity? You might like certain parts, but not like other parts. You might like the part that's a mother, but you might not like the part that's black, or whatever it is. You might have internalized racism and stuff around all of these different parts. You might have internalized misogyny. You might have whatever. Okay. And so the process that we would look at in therapy is what is the stuff that you've internalized? Okay, what have you inherited from your family and stuff like that? And how is all of that stuff playing out in the present? Because I work with a lot of people with addictions and stuff like that. Obviously, I would, speak to them about how they're getting on in their recovery process, if they're in 12-step recovery. And I would also tailor how I work with them within the context of addiction and stuff like that. I mean, the way that I work with people that are in 12-step recovery or they think about their addictions and stuff like that is really about addiction being a protective part, their survival behaviors and stuff like that. I mean, there are ways that I've um kind of reframed a lot of the addiction language and the 12-step language and stuff like that because I think a lot of it is quite old. A lot of it it's not very inclusive. And also it doesn't really take into consideration the struggles that we have as Black people, hence why I'm writing the book, hence why, I talk more about racial sobriety and stuff like that. So when we think about all of those things, the relationship with yourself is ultimately how you're going to heal, is to think about how you feel about yourself. So we would unpack that in therapy. I'd also look at your self-care practices, what your sleep is like, all that kind of stuff. How you basically take care of yourself. What are your triggers? How you manage your triggers, what if you have got any addictions, what are they? Because there are so many different types of addiction. It's not people just can quite often default to drugs and alcohol, but it can be, it can be shopping, it can be sex, it can be exercise, it can be food, there can be so many different ways that we try to soothe ourselves, that we protect ourselves under the guise of addiction. So we'd look at all of those different types. It could be avoidance as well, might have chronic avoidant patterns. So we'll look at all of those things in terms of the relationship with yourself and how you manage those things and what we would do kind of moving forward. So that's one part of the triangle, okay, your relationship with yourself. The second triangle is your relationship with others. So we'd look at your relationship to your family of origin, your carers, your relationship with your parents, your relationship with your siblings. This can also include your relationship with your children, your relationship to work, your friendship circles, all of that kind of stuff. Just how you relate. What is your relationship to relationships with other people? Okay. So we'd look at all of that. And also we'd look at your intergenerational patterns. When we think about your family of origin and stuff like that, we would look at, what is the stuff that you've inherited from your family? How, what is your parents' story? Are they immigrants from different countries? Do they have a history of enslavement? All that kind of stuff. We'd look at all of that and, your relationship to relationships, okay, is going to also, you can see the intersection already. Your relationship to relationships is going to impact the relationship that you have with yourself. They're all kind of, it's all intersectional, it's all interlinked, okay? And the third part of the triangle is your relationship to the system, Okay. Now, obviously, being Black people, we live in inside systems of oppression. We're trying to navigate all of this. We're trying to figure it all out, and all, but we're still living inside systems of oppression. We're talking about racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, whatever it is. We would look at all of those systems of oppression and your relationship to those things. How do you feel about those things? Are you compliant? Are you integrating into, are you trying to integrate into those things? Or assimilate is the word I'm thinking. Are you trying to assimilate into those things? What have you internalized? What do how does your relationship to this system impact how you impact your relationship to yourself? Okay. So all of these things in the triangle, they're all interlinked. Okay. So in therapy, what we would do is I would help you understand those things so that you can then make the adjustments if there's stuff that you need to process, if there's stuff that you need to unpack, if there's stuff that you need to rage about, if there's stuff that you need to grieve about, all of these things within that 3 point triangle, okay, are things that you really are going to need to look at, okay, in therapy. That's what I would do. I would help you understand those things and actually show you where to look, okay? At the end of the day, the power is within you. You have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to get vulnerable. You have to be willing to look beneath the surface, because quite often people will come in with surface issues. As an example, somebody that suffers with severe anxiety might think, oh, just give me some tools to deal with anxiety. No, I wouldn't just deal with the anxiety in the present. What I would also do is look at what's underneath the anxiety. So at some level, it might be that you feel uncomfortable with something around the relationship to yourself. There's something about your relationship to yourself that feels unsafe. There might be something that feels about your relationship to others that feels unsafe. Maybe you only feel anxious when you go to work, or when you do certain things, or when you're around certain people. Okay, it's not just a blanket binary statement, oh, you've got anxiety. No, there's always a story underneath it. So, these are the things that we would kind of unpack. Okay, these are the things that we would unpack in the session. And not only would we then look for, like I said, we'd just look for tools and things for you in the present, but would also do the work needed to do the stuff underneath all of that. Okay, so that's a kind of brief rundown of one of the methods that I use in order to work with clients. So that's my triangle of awareness or triangle of healing method. Okay, so the second way that I work with clients is really drilling down into black body awareness. Okay, so the kind of therapeutic term for that is somatic abolitionism. So this was kind of coined by one of my mentors, Reshma Mencken, and he wrote this amazing book called My Grandmother's Hands. Okay, so that book is it's amazing, and basically it's all about, obviously he talks about racism and oppression and stuff like that, but I would use the principles of it, which is really about your relationship to your black body. How do you feel as a black person to actually have to live every day inside a black body where the system essentially targets your black body? Now, you might not be conscious of your reactions to how you feel about living in a black body. You might not be conscious of how your body responds to living inside a system when you actually have a black body. Okay. You might not know consciously how you're dealing with all of these things. So in therapy, in the sessions, what we would do is I would help you understand exactly what is your relationship to your black body, and to actually get you more attuned to how you feel. Not just how you feel, but what are the vibrations that are happening in your body? How is your body, what stories is your body telling you? How do you feel physically around your black body? How does your body respond? Okay, how does your body respond to when you're functioning in your black body? How does your body respond when you're talking to white people? What happens when you talk to white people? Do you fawn? Do you freeze? There's all of these different things that happen that you might not be conscious of, okay, because you've never really been in a situation where you've had to really think about it. But in therapy, this is the black body thing is such an important part of it, because racism and oppression is essentially a shame-based system. Okay, it's essentially a shame-based system. And what I mean by that is, it uses shame to control us. Okay, so if you feel ashamed at any level about living in your black body, that is going to impact how you show up. That means that you are going to try to keep yourself small physically. It does mean that when you're around white people, that you might keep yourself small in your black body. It might mean that even when you're around other black people, you might feel really triggered when you're around other black people because you feel so ashamed about your own blackness and it's getting projected into the group. These are things that we would discuss, and it would help you to unpack and understand and process, because sometimes living in a black body can feel quite traumatic, especially when you're seeing, people that look like you being harmed on social media and whatever. You are going to feel some type of way about it. Okay, whether you understand that consciously or not, you are going to feel some type of way about living in a black body. Okay, when the world is telling you that you're ugly, that you're dangerous, that you're not smart, that you're lazy. If the systems and the world is constantly telling you that consciously and unconsciously, you're going to have some sort of response to that. So the black body awareness stuff is really about getting you to understand what it means for you to live in a black body, and what does the liberation of that look like? How can we begin to uh, help you understand how your nervous system is responding to what it means to live in a black body, because your nervous system is going to be doing all kinds of different things depending on your situation. Okay, so these are the types of things that you will learn in that you will learn. So, a lot of people do talk about nervous system work. It's very much a trend. I think for the last few years, it's been very much a trend. People talking about nervous system work and understanding your nervous system and all of that. But what I would teach you is the cultural context of it. What does it mean to have a nervous system in a black body? Okay. So I use Reshma's work. I use my own personal experience. I use my, the trauma work that I've done as well, not just personally, but, clinical work that I've done as a therapist to kind of help you understand what that means. And also, like, if you're in 12-step recovery, if you're doing addiction work and stuff like that, this work is even more important because you are going to get triggered by things. Okay, you are going to get triggered by things. You are going to, and this means that you're going to be vulnerable to relapsing as well if you're constantly being triggered by stuff. And this is why I believe so many black people find it difficult to stay sober. And when I say sober, I don't just mean in terms of alcohol. I mean, I'm talking in terms of food, in terms of emotional sobriety. I'm talking about relational sobriety. I'm talking about racial sobriety. There's so many different types of sobriety depending on depending on your vice. Okay, the thing that your go-to behavior, whether it's substance or behavior, that is going to be impacted by that. So how you feel about yourself and how you feel about living in a black body is going to have an impact on your ability to be sober and to be a healthy human being. So the black body awareness stuff I find is really, really key for doing the addiction work, because then you can kind of interrupt the patterns, you can interrupt the process if you understand what's happening in your body, rather than, you're reacting to it, and you're going to um acting out whatever that acting out behavior is, or whatever the acting out process is for you. You're gonna, instead of kind of jumping to that protective, that self-soothing addictive behavior, that compulsive behavior, whatever it is, you'll have a lot more awareness. So then you'll be able to interrupt those patterns because you understand the extra layer of the cultural context as part of it. Okay, so that is the black body awareness stuff. That's the second part of the second method that I support clients with in therapy. The third part that I do is parts work. Okay, so parts work is when you understand that, this, it's not just one self that comes to therapy. There are different parts of you that have different needs, that have different conversations, that have different scripts, that have different feelings. There's so many different parts of us. We're not just one binary self. Okay, so an example of that is okay, so I'll use my birthday as an example. So I've just recently just kind of finished a really kind of like a month long, really beautiful sabbatical. Okay. And because my birthday is in November as well, I tend to take some more time off during November. Um, But what I realized around the birthday is that there are different parts of me that have a different relationship with my birthday. So an example of that might be, I might have my 5-year-old self might be grieving the fact that she didn't have birthday parties when she was growing up, and stuff like that. And there might be an adult part of me. My therapist identity my obviously needs a break. Okay, so my 5-year-old self might want a birthday party. My therapist identity might want a break. My mum identity might want to go and stay in a hotel for a few days and have or go on a silent retreat or something. My queer identity might want to be a social butterfly and hang out with all my friends and stuff like that, and to have, to gather and all that kind of stuff. So, as an example of that's an example of parts work. And the reason why this is important is because sometimes the parts of ourselves can be in conflict with each other. There might be one part of me that really doesn't is scared of being visible because I felt invisible as a child. So the idea of being visible around my birthday might feel too painful. But then the social butterfly part that wants to be around other people obviously, doesn't feel ashamed and really wants connection and really wants to be seen and all that kind of stuff. So the part that feels ashamed and the part that wants connection with people that care about me, those parts can be in conflict. So what we do in therapy is I suppose we create almost like a we get all the different parts of yourself depending on whatever the situation is that we're talking about to kind of sit round a therapeutic table and begin to understand what does the part want you to know, how old is that part, what is that part's needs, how do they feel about the thing that you're talking about and whatever. So in doing that you can have a lot more compassion for yourself and understanding that actually, yeah, there is a younger part of me that might feel X, and then there's another part of me that might feel Y. And it doesn't mean that it has to be an either or situation. It doesn't mean that you have to pick one side. Both feelings and needs and things like that can be true. Okay, both things can be true at the same time. So, what I support you with in therapy is to figure out a way to help the parts to navigate their relationship with each other and how you can come to some sort of arrangement, realignment, understanding, not just about the parts, but how you can help those parts get their needs met. Okay, how you can help those different parts of you to get their needs met. And that can be very, very powerful. And it's a way of really integrating all of the different parts of yourself. And it creates a lot more self-acceptance because you're then more understanding of what's happening for you. And also it's understanding that, yes, there might be that younger part that feels a certain type of way about birthdays, but there's also that adult part of you that knows that it needs to reparent that younger part in order for it to feel comfortable enough to go and do the stuff that's visible, as an example. Okay. So in therapy, I would really help you to understand all the different parts of yourself, okay, depending on the situation and your relationship to those parts of yourself. So yeah, so that's in a nutshell the three core things that I use. Okay. So it's the triangle, okay, which is the relationship with self, the relationship with the system, and the relationship with others. The second part is the black body awareness. So it's a lot of somatic work, a lot of somatic abolitionism. So we understand the black body, understand the nervous system, understand your responses to things, whether it's conscious or unconscious. You just have a deeper understanding of your inner world, okay, in terms of your black body. And the last one is parts work. So we understand that, healing is not linear. We understand that it's not a binary situation. There's not like a binary self. There are different parts of you that have different needs and different things that want to be discussed. And so, we have like a therapeutic round table, if you will, that all the different parts of you get to sit down around, and I sit there with you and help you unpack, understand, process, talk about needs, rage, grieve, whatever. Have different emotions around there's so many different parts to it, so many different things that are involved in it. But just so you understand. And all of the things that I talk about always has a cultural context. Okay. I always, always, always ask the question. I'm always curious about how does being a black person How does having melanin in your skin impact how you feel about that particular thing that you're talking about? Because quite often people, clients will come in and they'll talk about different things, but they don't think about it within the context of it being black, and it gives them an extra layer of understanding. How does the system play a role in how you feel about that thing that you're talking about? How does being a woman or whatever think about, how does being a black woman impact how you feel about that thing that you're talking about? So, regardless of the topic, regardless of the conversation, I will always include that, because then it just gives you a more holistic view of what's happening for you, and it will also open up your mind into how you can actually take care of yourself. Okay, how you can take care of yourself, not just as a human being, but as a black human being that is still living inside systems that are incredibly violent and incredibly traumatic. Okay. That's it. I hope you found that helpful. And if you are thinking about working with me, thank you so much for considering working with me as your therapist. If you've got any questions, again, like I said, please email me info@yardofgreatness.com. If you know somebody that's actually thinking about having therapy or something like that, then please share this information with them. And thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so, so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Go to heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. That's heal.juneallen.net. And you'll find all of the tabs where you can sign up. You can sign up for a subscription to work with me. Okay. Have an amazing day. And I will see you next time. All right. Take care. Bye bye.